Can the Sharks finally get their first win of the season as they head to New York to face the Rangers? We check in with John from Locked On Rangers.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And today we are joined by Jon Chik of Locked On Rangers, where we talk about kind of the Sharks rebuild. We check in on the Rangers and kind of where this team is at. It's kind of might be a team in transition here, and kind of check on this early storylines from them. And then we talk about players to watch tonight, and then make some predictions for this game. Spoiler, I think the Sharks win this game. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
All right, and so with no further ado, welcome to a very special crossover edition of Locked On New York Rangers and Locked On San Jose Sharks. This is Jon Chik with Locked On Rangers, joined by my good friend JD Young of Locked On Sharks. And JD, Rangers Sharks, we were talking right before we hit record here. The Rangers are either going to get their first win at home this season, or the Sharks will get their first win in general. So something's got to give here. But big picture with the Sharks, I certainly have to ask about the rebuild. We knew it was going to be kind of a long-term thing, and it was going to take some time to put the pieces together. And certainly there are some really exciting young players that are looking like building blocks for your franchise. But just in general, where things stand right now between you and like just Sharks fans in general, do you guys still see the vision? Like, are you happy with where things are? And do you think this thing is ultimately moving in the right direction despite the slow start for this season?
Yeah, I mean, like nobody expected the Sharks to be like a playoff contender or anything like that this year. I know some fans are frustrated because they feel like this team is worse than last year, which I don't believe. I do think this team is a better team than last year. This team, of course, has gotten out of the gate slow. It has over the past couple seasons. And I kind of expected it, right? With so many new pieces coming in. You look at the blue line where you have 4 new faces between John Klingberg, Dmitry Orlov, Sam Dickinson, and Nick Leddy. That's a lot of new pieces on the blue line, so that has been kind of a big issue. But overall, though, I mean, you see like Macklin Celebrini is on his way to being a superstar type of player. Will Smith is a star as well. You see William Eklund really kind of rounding into form as a really high-end top 6 type of player. Michael Misa, we'll talk about here in a little bit. You see some of the flashes for him and why he's going to be a special player. Even Sam Dickinson, who's gotten better and better every game he's played. So we haven't seen the wins, but you do feel like the results are going to come if this team continues to play the way they are. And right, as I've mentioned a bunch of times, that we don't want to be the next Kraken team where you make the playoffs once and then you're kind of stuck in mediocrity. We want to be the next like Avalanche or Lightning or, that team that is just always in it as long as you have these guys healthy and you feel like they're going to have a chance every year to potentially win the cup.
Absolutely. And you touched on Michael Misa a second ago there. And I wanted to ask you about this kind of curious strategy that the Sharks have to begin this season where, obviously high draft pick and, they throw him out there for certain games, but then he's a healthy scratch for other games. Are you okay with this strategy? Like for me, whenever there's a young Ranger prospect and he gets called up to the team, my philosophy is play him. And if you're not going to play him every night or almost every night, then put him in the AHL and let him do his thing there and get more seasoning. But just your thoughts on how they're handling Misa, and are you okay with this strategy that they're deploying here?
So with Misa, though, he's in that unfortunate position where he can only play in the NHL or he has to go back to the OHL, right? So that's the kind of rock and a hard place there with him because he's clearly too good to go back in the OHL. He led the OHL in scoring last year, had 62 goals in 65 games, was one of the best won the OHL Player of the Year, was like, he has nothing left to prove in the OHL. So, and we saw the Sharks use this same strategy with Will Smith last year. Will Smith, they played him on the third line to begin the season. They kind of, he was playing about 13, 14 minutes a night to start the year. And then as he got his body ready to play against professional players and kind of got used to the speed of the game, they kind of took the training wheels off. And you saw after the new year, he really things really started to click. And then to finish the last 34 games, he had 30 points in 34 games. Only Macklin Celebrini had more points in that time, and Celebrini had 31 points during that time. So I think what the Sharks are trying to do the same type of approach with Michael Misa, but I think he's I think he's a better rounded prospect than what Will Smith was, even with Will Smith going a year at BC. And I think we could see him kind of maybe around Thanksgiving, beginning of December. You start to kind of see the training wheels come off with Misa and really kind of start to see him hit his stride. And again, for the Sharks, right? Wins don't matter as much. And yes, you want to see some wins, but it's how does Macklin Celebrini continue his development? How does Michael Misa continue his development? Will Smith and these other players. So the hope is to kind of ease him in a little bit. And then that way he doesn't hit that kind of rookie wall that we see usually happen right around that, January, February, right before the All-Star break. That's kind of the hope, is that he's playing better hockey at the end of the season than he is at the beginning of the season.
Absolutely. And, touched on Celebrini a couple times. I already know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. I mean, how legit is this kid? Because, us Ranger fans, we're not always up late to see these West Coast games. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind sometimes. But, I mean, man, this kid has set the NHL on fire. And, I mean, he looks like the real deal. So just your thoughts on getting to watch him night in and night out.
So the 23-24 season, where the Sharks were the worst team in the NHL, right? And you won the Celebrini, sweepstakes. There was literally very few things that coming, after a game, and you're like, cool, we lost 7-1, type of thing. At least with Celebrini, you get something every night where you're like, man, did you see that thing Celebrini did? Whether it's a strong play in the defensive zone, or he makes a incredible transition, or whatever he does, he's always doing something. And the last 2 games, he missed a lot of the preseason with a unknown ailment, is what they were calling it, but he missed a lot of the preseason. So kind of beginning of the year, he's a little bit rusty, but the last 2 games, he's really started to come on and looked Celebrini-like. And the point production's still been there, despite him not kind of looking fully Celebrini. I think he's going to be one of the best players in the league, Hart candidate, Selke candidate type of player. It's crazy what the Sharks have already kind of put on his shoulders as a 19-year-old. He's already wearing a letter. He's going to be the next captain of the Sharks. It's not a matter of if, but when Macklin Celebrini is going to be the next captain of the San Jose Sharks. And this kid, he's just a special player, just on the ice, off the ice, the maturity level for a 19-year-old. It's you hope one day, when you're a struggling franchise, right, that you get a player like this. And the Sharks, they did the hard part. They got the player like this, and it feels like there's a big reason why they keep saying the future is teal, and Celebrini's a big part of it.
Absolutely. And I mean, he could be there for 15, 20 years if everything goes right. I mean, given
you're hoping Crosby 2.0 type, that's what you're hoping. Yeah. If you're anywhere near that, it's a grand slam. So
absolutely. All right. So goalie situation. I mean, I've noticed, Nedeljkovic and Askarov have kind of split time so far. Now, Nedeljkovic has had his ups and downs. He's kind of bounced around the league a little bit. Not a bad goalie for his career, but Askarov seems to be the one with more upside. He's younger, former first-round pick by the Predators. And I'm just wondering where you stand and who you think should get the bulk of playing time. I mean, are you feeling one of them or the other? And which one do you think might appear in this game against the Rangers?
So the Sharks have been very deliberate with just rotating goalies to start the season here. So I assume it's going to be Nedeljkovic starting on Thursday, because Askarov played on Tuesday. Both of these guys have given you some great moments. I would say so far this season, Nedeljkovic has been the better of the 2 goalies, and I don't think it's really much of a competition, to be honest, between them. But both of them also give you a lot of times where you just pull your hair out, especially when it comes to playing the puck. I mean, the Sharks were 5 minutes away, or 3 minutes away from beating Vegas to start this season, and then Askarov does kind of the same thing in the next game. And so they both have had some of these kind of brain fart moments where you're just dude, this team is just not talented enough to overcome like some of these mental mistakes. So it has cost the Sharks some couple wins here, but I expect them to continue to do this. Askarov, like he had a great season in the AHL last year. He looked good in his limited starts last year with the Sharks as he filled in for injured Vitek Vanacek. But this year, I think some of the hype might have gotten a little bit out of control with Askarov to start the season, and people still forget he has less than 20 games under his belt in his NHL career, and he's playing behind a defense that's still trying to kind of figure things out right now. So it's a little bit of kind of chicken or the egg. Is it Askarov not playing up to standards? Is it the defense in front of him? Is a little bit of both here? And I do think it's a little bit of both. But Nedeljkovic has kind of played in some of these situations, right? He played again on a bad Penguins team last year, and kind of I think is more used to kind of dealing with a bad defense in front of him. So, but I expect them to continue to kind of just rotate now until Askarov kind of takes the net, and that I think that's going to be the Sharks' plan this year. Is just right now just split them until Askarov's ready to kind of take the bulk of it, and whenever that happens, that will happen. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like a solid game plan to me. And one more question I'll ask you about the Sharks, and then we can shift our attention. You can fire away with some Rangers questions. But Ryan Warsofsky, I mean, obviously a young coach in charge of a very young team right now. Is he the guy for you? Like, I mean, it's probably too early in his tenure to tell with him just starting last year, but is this somebody that, you feel like could be, I mean, we know like Celebrini and Smith and all these guys, Misa, are going to be there forever. Could he have that kind of a tenure as the Sharks coach, as he kind of like leads them out of the darkness, so to speak?
That's a great question, because there's already a growing segment of Sharks fans who want to fire Ryan Warsofsky because the team hasn't progressed at all. But again, it's that like this team is bad and it's got a lot of new pieces, and like in the long run, does it matter if John Klingberg's good or not? No, it doesn't really matter. All the things that matter are, like I said, like, does Sam Dickinson get better? Does Will Smith get better? Do all these young players who are going to be part of your core pieces? And I think the struggle right now is Sharks fans want to see more of Sam Dickinson and more of Michael Misa and guys like Luca Cagnoni, who was one of the top AHL defensemen last year. Like, they want to see these guys in the lineup. And of course, Warsofsky, he's going to be more, kind of go with the veterans, even new veterans, and try to let those guys kind of shepherd their way until they feel like some of the young guys are ready. So it's this kind of weird dynamic where, eventually like these young players are going to take over, but it's just, he's kind of stuck in this tough place of he's trying to win, but he's also trying to develop players at the same time. So I do like Warsofsky. I know a lot of people are already sour on him after a year, but I do think he can be a really good coach. He's still kind of going through some of his learning curve of being an NHL head coach. But I think, though, like once he kind of fully leans into the younger players, I think he's going to start to have more success and just kind of ride some of those rookie mistakes and deal with it. But I do think Warsofsky can be a good coach in the NHL.
Absolutely. So in just a minute, we're going to keep everything rolling here. JD's going to, fire away with some Ranger questions for me, and we'll talk everything Blue Shirts. And at the end of the episode, we'll do some predictions, some players to watch, all that good stuff. We'll do all that fun stuff in just a minute. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers and Locked On San Jose Sharks is brought to you by DROUGHT. Let's be real, making excuses does not solve anything. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where DROUGHT comes in. DROUGHT.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. DROUGHT makes it so easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor, 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships directly and straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it is all handled by real doctors. Visit RUGIT.com/LockedOnNHL to get 15% off your first offer. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL. And do not forget to use our code LockedOnNHL so they know we sent you. RUGIT, stop making excuses and start making moves.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. You'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, Put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 of bonus bets to use across the app. Great thing about it, there's so many different ways to play. FanDuel, like you can build parlays. So if you think a series of things are going to happen, you can do player props. So if you think Tua is going to throw like three interceptions and the Dolphins are going to lose by like 20 points, very possible things that are going to happen on Sunday. You can even follow the live lines during the game. So it makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something right on action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and to get started.
All right, we're going to go ahead and keep everything rolling here on this special crossover edition of Locked On Rangers and Locked On Sharks for the everydayers. Both shows going to be discussing whatever happens in this game in the next episode on each show. But for right now, JD, any questions for the Rangers and what's going on with us so far?
I'm going to ask a question that's on the tip of every San Jose Sharks fan. Would you like Barclay Goodrow back?
No, I'm good. I'm good on that. But look, Goodrow, I mean, listen, he was not obviously a superstar player. I do think that locker room, when he left last season, certainly did miss his leadership to a degree. And he did have that out of nowhere awesome performance in the playoffs the year prior. Yeah. So I can't hate on Barclay too much, man. But
that I'm okay, contract
man. You guys can have him.
Horrendous.
Is he really? Like it's that bad?
He's been so bad. He has not been good with the Sharks this year, and the contract is even worse. At like 6 years, $3.6 million that they gave him. Absolutely terrible. Yeah, he's been playing like fourth line minutes, and like he's been okay this year. He's been okay this year, but it's still just like, But as a real question, so this team, the Rangers, what's going on at home? Right, they've scored one goal at home so far. This team just can't score at home. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's been rough, man. 1 goal at home in 4 games, and it was actually in the first minute of the most recent game. So they were shut out at home 3 times in a row to start the season. Then it's like, oh, hey, a quick strike, and we're going to be off and running here. And then they end up losing 3-1 in the most recent game. But as far as like why it's happening, I mean, opening night against Pittsburgh was an absolute debacle. They just didn't play well. I mean, I know a lot of people like point to the effort. I don't think it was really that as much as just maybe learning a new system and almost hyper focusing too much on the new system rather than just going out there and playing hockey. They've gotten goalied a couple times. I mean, not that these guys are perennial Vezina candidates, but Lindgren and Skinner were both fantastic in those 2 games. And this most recent game against the Wild just wasn't very good. They just didn't generate a lot of scoring chances. As little as the Rangers are scoring, not just at home, but in general this season, I do feel like they deserve better outcomes than what they've gotten. Like I said, there have been a couple of instances of just absolute highway robbery. The one issue that this team does have, though, when it comes to scoring, they are extremely, extremely top heavy. Like when you look at the bottom 6 of this team, there's not really, I mean, they work hard. I think a lot of these guys do have a role, but there's not going to be a whole lot of offense coming from those guys. At least it doesn't seem that way. You never know when somebody can randomly get hot, but scoring depth, not that that's an uncommon issue for teams around the NHL, but it seems to be a big time issue with the Rangers. And I've been campaigning on my show to call up, at least one of the kids, whether that's Gabe Perreault or Brett Berard or whoever it might be. But you look at the bottom 6 right now, you've got Connor Sheary. He was in a PTO. He's playing in the top 6 right now. So that'll give you an idea of where things are. Now, granted, part of the reason for that is Vincent Trocheck is injured, but even with that being the case, there's not a lot of scoring depth there. So that is definitely an issue right now.
All right. So speaking of Gabe Perreault, because I know a lot of Sharks fans kind of keeping tabs on Perreault. Of course, he was line mates with Will Smith, both at the national program and then at Boston College. Hasn't really kind of had a chance to make an impact yet. Is kind of like what's the deal with Perreault here as he's kind of continues his development?
I'm actually okay with how they've handled him so far. I mean, obviously his college season wraps up last year, and he wants to go pro, ends up playing in 5 games with the Rangers down the stretch, and what at that point was mostly a lost season. I mean, I guess technically they were still alive, but it didn't feel like some miracle finish was on the way there. So he got his feet wet there, and then obviously you go through, he plays in the rookie series against the Flyers, you get the preseason games. I think overall he looked pretty good, and you've been able to tell, even without a whole lot of points last season, between that and then obviously the preseason this year, the skill is obvious. I mean, he sees the ice very well. The passing is incredible. I think he's got a little bit of an underrated shot as well. But I was completely cool coming into this season with him starting with the Wolfpack, just because we've seen the Rangers in the past rush their prospects to the NHL to results that are like iffy at best, right?
Yeah.
So my thing coming into the year was like, even if it's only like 15 or 20 games, like just let him get that little bit of a bridge between college and the NHL, and then call him up when you definitely have a role for him. But the longer the scoring drought lasts, the more I kind of become like, well, maybe you could call him up a little bit early. My pick would still be Berard if you want to, promote somebody and give yourselves a little boost, a little shot of energy from one of the younger players. But I mean, sooner or later he's going to be on this team, because I don't think it's going to be like Sheary and Radish and Parsonen, in the middle six for the entire season. Somebody's gonna lose their spot to Gabe Pro sooner or later.
All right. Looking at like especially this top six, like it is an older group here, right? You know, Panarin, who I know there's some issues with Panarin. He's also in the last year of his deal. Zibanejad, I know, had a terrible season last year. Miller's, trying to instill a new culture and stuff. But like, does this kind of feel like the Rangers are kind of slow? Do you feel like the window's starting to close here with the Rangers, or like where do you kind of feel like they're at right now as a franchise?
Yeah, they're sort of. I feel like in a way they're kind of caught between going for it now and also kind of building for the future, which I guess can work, but it can also be a little bit of a dangerous game, because if you start, like if they're in the mix for the playoffs this year, and let's say they're even in a playoff spot when we get to the trade deadline, like what are you going to do? Are you going to like trade away these young prospects and give up draft picks to add to this team and maybe make one last run with it with this core group of players here? I don't know that would be the way to go. I mean, I feel like they might be in a situation where they end up being soft buyers if they're in contention this year. Yeah. It's a veteran team, but I do think that people tend to exaggerate how old they are. I mean, they are an older than average NHL team. There's a lot of players right around that 32, 33-year-old range, which like it's not ancient, but you are starting to get up there a little bit. Nobody is older than 33 other than Jonathan Quick. And, obviously he's the backup goalie. But yeah, man, they're kind of in a unique spot right now. I think they are trying to catch lightning in a bottle. That's why you hire somebody like Mike Sullivan, somebody who had obviously instant success with Pittsburgh. And it's why you bring in JT Miller to very quickly and very emphatically change the culture. And I think so far, the two of them, I think they've, shown why they've had the success that they have had in this league. And, Sullivan, I think the guys are buying into his message and his style. And JT Miller, same thing. It feels like guys are following him. The phrase that I heard used about Miller quite a bit was he has a way of dragging you into the fight with him. And I do see that. I definitely do see that.
All right. One more. So defensively, right, you basically swapped out K'Andre Miller for Gavrikov. And I know Miller got a nice payday down in Carolina. Gavrikov also got a nice payday from you guys. But how is that going, that transition from Miller to Gavrikov?
I love it. I'm all about it. K'Andre Miller, when he first debuted for the Rangers, I thought, dude, this kid's a superstar in the making.
Yeah.
He's going to be here for 15 seasons. It's going to be him and Adam Fox, like on the blue line. The last season or two, I just don't know what happened. I mean, everything went south. He seemed to make big mistakes in like big spots in games. And, it gets to a point where it's like the Rangers can afford to give him that contract. So let's trade him. And, it's funny because people kind of laughed when I said, I think you can get a first round for him. They get a first rounder, a second rounder, and Scott Morrow. I felt like that was highway robbery. I was all good with it. And Gavrikov, you bring him in, he's not a flashy player in the slightest, but he's one of those guys that he'll make just like 10 small plays during the course of the game that do help you. And they're not going to be on top 10 plays of the night or anything like that, but he's been really solid, really steady. And the chemistry with Fox, I think it's still coming along a little bit, but I do think they're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Gavrikov a ton playing with the Kings, and the dude just he's very good. And you also now look at the Kings who are having trouble defensively to start the season, and you can kind of like put 2 and 2 together there, and it feels like Gavrikov might be that kind of Jenga piece for the Kings, and it might be a very sneaky upgrade for you guys here. So, but yeah, I was the Miller saga is someone who the Sharks, of course, drafted Ryan Merkley to pick before K'Andre Miller, and of course, every Sharks fan has been kind of like, well, we could have just had this guy instead of Ryan Merkley, who's now playing over in the KHL. But yeah, it's just it's these little fun kind of wrinkles and trades and what guy goes where and how it's always fun.
The story is always evolving. It's always changing. Like you think you got a steal and then it's like, well, maybe not. Maybe this guy was actually better. And you just never know how it's going to work out. But I figure in just a minute, we can go ahead, keep everything rolling here, do some predictions, talk about some players to watch, and yeah, and then we'll call it, and we'll see what happens between the Rangers and the Sharks. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Game Time and Locked On San Jose Sharks, of course. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it is easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Game Time is the best because one of the most awesome features of any ticketing website that I've ever seen are those panoramic seat views where, whether you're going to a game, a concert, special event, whatever it might be, you get to actually see what it's going to look like when you get to your seats. That's an awesome feature and definitely worth checking out Game Time for that. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap up this very special crossover edition here today. And JD, I mean, we talked about obviously some of the star players and everything that's going on with them and some of the early season storylines. Is there anybody on the Sharks that's maybe a little bit under the radar, not a headline grabber, but somebody that us Ranger fans maybe we're not familiar with, we should keep our eye on in this game here,
Well, you should be pretty familiar with him, but a new addition, old friend Jeff Skinner. Skinner's been off to a pretty good start with the Sharks. He has 3 goals to start the season. Could actually probably have 5 if a little bit of puck luck goes his way. But he's been a really nice veteran addition. So far, he's been the best veteran addition for the Sharks this offseason. He's playing top 6 minutes, of course. And I know last year he didn't have the greatest season in Edmonton, but you saw it's that classic case, right? You take a top 6 guy, you try to shove him down into the bottom 6, and it just doesn't really work out for you. And now he's playing kind of more minutes, and he's gotten more opportunities. I think he'll probably play with Wenberg and Macklin is what they were playing together last time, and that line was really good against the New York Islanders. And when Skinner's been a really nice kind of just crafty veteran scoring addition to the Sharks. So he's a guy I want to see how he continues to do, and it's probably going to be trade bait at the deadline, but it was brought in to help kind of provide some more of that scoring for the Sharks, who finished last season as the worst team in the NHL when it came to offense. And so far, so good with Jeff Skinner, and I think he could be set up for another solid day here against the Rangers.
Yeah, and if I'll throw out one of those players for the Rangers, I will go with Sam Carrick, 4th line center. He's somebody that obviously not a superstar, but he knows exactly who he is as an NHL player. He knows his strengths. He knows what he's out there to do. I feel like he's really kind of embraced that role of centering the 4th line between Adam Edstrom and Matt Rempe. I mean, they're both like 8 feet tall, and they're obviously both very young, and he's kind of led the way for them. And that line has kind of become like a bit of a tone-setting line for the Rangers. They're very physical. They'll get in your face, and they've in recent games been actually getting more ice time than the 3rd line. And I don't know what that says about the 3rd line. It might say a decent amount about them too, but these guys have earned more ice time. They're creating more scoring chances than you might think. And there was a game against Montreal 2 games ago for the Rangers where they were still down by a goal were the Rangers, and he gets into a fight against Jack-Eye, who's obviously quite a bit bigger than him, held his own, really did a great job, really seemed to fire up the Rangers and get them to that next level, and they ended up coming back in that game to win it. So if there's any extracurriculars in this one, the temperature rises. I would expect he would be right in the middle of that stuff because he tends to get under people's skin a little bit. And somebody that, when the Rangers signed him for 3 years, it was like, what the hell is this, right? Like, this is so random. Like, Sam Carrick for 3 years, but I'm glad he's here, man. He's been a heck of a player for this team for sure.
Yeah, the Ryan Reeves, Rempe, Carrick, the 4th line shenanigans, I'm sure that'll be fun. So all right, so we
how's Revo doing? I gotta ask because I liked him a lot when he was there.
So I hated the trade when it happened because of course, like my big thing is like, if you're not fighting, what else can you do? And to be fair, he's been he's been pretty solid for the Sharks. He already has a goal, which was kind of crazy. He got into a fight as well, so he's already kind of matched his last season numbers when it comes to that. So he's been so far he's been off to a good start with the Sharks here, kind of again playing that fourth line. He's he's gonna give you 7 or 8 minutes a night, playing with Barclay Goodrow, and they've had Adam Gaudette or Ty Dellandrea kind of centering them. But I think his whole job is to make Celebrini and Smith feel an inch taller. I think were his exact words. So to make those guys feel an inch taller. So hopefully kind of keep some, because that was a little bit of a problem last year where just guys kind of targeting Celebrini and kind of targeting some of the younger players. So Reeves is here to kind of keep things in check a little bit. But so far so good. We'll see. It's a long season still. So but we mentioned some of these guys here. What do you think is kind of the big thing? The Rangers win this game if what?
If they can finish their scoring opportunities, because that more than anything is what has killed this team so far this season. They have an underwhelming record. Honestly, they played very poorly on opening night. I don't think this most recent game against Minnesota was all that good. I mean, they did pick it up a little bit in the second half of the game, and they had again another situation where it looked like Mika Zibanejad was going to score and just absolute highway robbery, glove saved by Gustafsson. But yeah, I mean that's been the thing that's really held this team back. That's what has to change going forward. I feel like law of averages, regression to the mean, sooner or later it has to. But I've also been saying that for 3 or 4 games now. So who's to say for sure? But how about the Sharks? Same question. They'll win this game
if they can limit their own mistakes. The Sharks, they can play solid hockey for 55 minutes, but every game they have 5 minutes where they just absolutely lose their mind and forget exactly what they're doing. And you never know when it's going to strike. That's the worst problem, right? It happened at the end of the Vegas game, and that's how they end up losing that game. Even against the Islanders, where they completely dominated the Islanders, shot attempt, shots, scoring, everything. But there was 5 minutes at the end of the first period where they just dumb plays, dumb turnovers that lead to goals go in the other way. And if this team can try to limit some of their mistakes here, this team has been playing really well the past 2 games. And yes, against the Penguins, they got shut out, but they got a little bit, I think they got unlucky in that game. And, the Penguins are a team that's kind of in their own stratosphere. Islanders, same thing. They dominated the Islanders, team in their own stratosphere, and just got a little bit unlucky there. So I think that they've been playing well and they've been kind of building a couple good performances here. So I think if they can kind of limit those, same thing, kind of take advantage of some of their opportunities, especially on the power play, I do think the Sharks can win this game. I wouldn't be shocked if they win this game. Friday's game against the Devils, I'll be shocked, but I do think this is a very winnable game for the Sharks, unfortunately, John.
So let's end on that then. How about a prediction? Do you have a final score for this, or somebody to score from the Sharks or anything along those lines?
I'm going to say the Sharks get their first win because they can't just keep losing every game. Like I said, I think they played really well the last 2 games. And I'm going to say Celebrini has 3 points. I think Celebrini has been really playing well. Give me a goal and 2 assists. I think he comes to MSG and it just kind of shows everybody why he's going to be the next face of the NHL.
Gotcha. So I'll say 3-1 Rangers. I'll say Mika Zibanejad scores a goal. I mean, he's just due. He's been shooting the puck a lot more often this season. He's been robbed as much as anybody. I'll say 3-1 just because, I don't neither one of these teams are putting up massive goal totals. So I'll keep it a little bit low scoring. But I will say, man, obviously they've got some dangerous players, the Sharks, some exciting young players. And I hate when my team is playing a team that is either winless or on a losing streak. Because honestly, I want them to beat the Islanders because sooner or later, they're going to get somebody. And it does sound like the Sharks have been in these games recently.
Yeah. They've had 2 games this year where the game against the Canes, and the Canes will just make anybody look bad because that team is just ridiculous, and especially the style that they play. And then the Utah game where half the game they just didn't look good, but everything else, they've been in these games and just bad teams being bad team here, and that's kind of kept them from winning some games. And there's an easy universe where this team is 3-3 right now just because of things kind of break differently for them. But yeah, they're not the worst team. I don't think they're the worst, even though the record says they're the worst team in the NHL. I don't think they're the worst team in the NHL. And I think it hopefully starts to even out here. So, and hopefully it happens against your Rangers, buddy. Sorry, I need a win, buddy. I haven't had a win all season.
Hopefully not, but I will pull for the Sharks a little bit, man, because it's a great franchise, and hopefully they're turning the corner a little bit. But yeah, figure we can call it there for myself, for JD Young. JD, thanks for doing this, man. We'll have to do this again when they play each other down the road.
Yes, anytime, buddy, anytime.
All right, sounds good.